everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. On behalf of the Hepatitis B Foundation, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rhea Racho. I'm the Program and Policy Coordinator for the Hepatitis B Foundation. We are very excited to present today's session about our newly launched Just B storytelling campaign. Before getting started, I'll just go through a few housekeeping items and let you guys know how you can participate in today's webinar. Okay. So please note that all attendees are in listen-only mode and will be muted throughout the presentation. There is a call-in option for this webinar as noted on the screen. You can also find this call-in number on your GoToWebinar control panel. At any time during the presentation, you can submit questions in the chat box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll be reviewing these as they come in, and we will hold time for Q&A after the presentation. Now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. I am joined by Amy Hill with StoryCenter, a nonprofit organization based in Berkeley, California, who we partnered with to create our Just B digital story bank. I'm also joined by three of our wonderful Just B storytellers, Kim, Rensley, and Jason, who you will have the opportunity to get to know a bit better later on in this webinar. I also wanted to note that this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with a link to view and share the recording of today's presentation within the next few days. So to start things off, Amy and I will provide background information about the Just B campaign, about StoryCenter, and a little bit of background about digital storytelling. I'll share details about our story distribution plan and several resources that you can find online related to this campaign. We will then screen the 3 digital story videos that Kim, Rensley, and Jason created. And finally, the remainder of our time will be dedicated to discussion and Q&A with our 3 storytellers. Okay, so an overview of the campaign. Just B is a national multilingual public health campaign that aims to put a face on hepatitis B. The goals for the campaign are to increase awareness, decrease stigma and discrimination, promote testing and linkage to care, and advocate for those affected by hepatitis B. The campaign features real stories of everyday people from across the U.S. who have been personally impacted by hepatitis B and want to share their stories to educate communities and inspire action. Our current group of 15 storytellers range in age from 19 to 75 years old, and they represent a variety of perspectives and experiences with hepatitis B. So far, we have collected stories from patients, family members, a liver transplant survivor, adoptive parents of children with hepatitis B, and several others. I'm sorry, can you guys still see my presentation? The slides that are up on the screen? Okay, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing what you guys are actually seeing. Okay. Okay, so back to the overview. We were able to bring together this diverse group of storytellers with the help of APCHO and many of our Happy United Coalition members who helped us to identify and recruit people who would be interested in sharing their stories about hepatitis B. In partnership with StoryCenter, who you'll hear more about from Amy in just a few minutes, the Hepatitis B Foundation coordinated 2 workshops this year for 15 total participants. The first workshop was held in January in Berkeley, at StoryCenter's office, and the second was held in March in Doylestown, Pennsylvania at the Hepatitis B Foundation's office. Through these 2 workshops, and with Amy's hard work on all of the post-production editing, we added 15 videos to our story bank. 7 of those stories have been translated or are in the process of being translated into different languages, including Vietnamese, Mandarin, Tagalog, Marshallese, and Chuukese. And then I'd just like to note that all of this was made possible by the generous support of our funders, Arbutus Biopharma and Dynavax Technologies. And Amy, are you on the line? Let's see, do we have Amy? I'm sorry, everyone, just one moment. Hi, Amy, is that you?
Yeah, it is me.
Oh, great. Okay. I'm sorry about that, everyone. Okay, we can hear you now, and I was just going to turn it over to you. Amy is going to talk to us a little bit more about StoryCenter, her organization that we partnered with for this campaign. I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Rhea. Hello, everyone. I'm really sorry I can't join via video, but I'm helping teach art at my daughter's school today, so I had to just call in. So I've been with StoryCenter for about 15 years now, leading much of our public health-focused work, and we're a small nonprofit that offers a whole range of public and partnership-based services, including beginning and more advanced digital storytelling workshops, online webinars, workshops emphasizing story writing, also curriculum development, story distribution planning, and support with program evaluation and strategic distribution of stories. And as an organization, we describe ourselves as experts in what we call community-based participatory media. So for us at StoryCenter, this means that all of our work is rooted in first-person stories told in people's own I voice and shared directly from people's own experiences. It also means that we work with groups rather than one-on-one with individuals. So with the groups, we co-produce stories as written pieces, audio pieces, and videos. And then finally, community-based participatory media means that we really emphasize hands-on access to the tools of digital media production. So for instance, rather than sending a bunch of trained filmmaking professionals into a community, we bring people together into our workshops and support participants in learning themselves how to work with photos, video clips, and actual video editing software. So that's our organization. So Rhea, I think we can move to the next slide now.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so I'm just going to keep going because I know really the most exciting part of this webinar is the stories and the storytellers. So I'll just move quickly through these slides. So our most popular methodology at StoryCenter is the digital storytelling workshop. And this is a model we've been developing since the early 1990s to support people in sharing personal stories as short videos. It's really rooted in oral storytelling practices like oral history, as well as in the popular education philosophy of starting where people are in any effort to do community education and organizing. And then also, of course, in the participatory approach that I just talked about. So digital storytelling is a methodology that's being used widely in a public health context by community-based practitioners and researchers interested in looking at how real people's real stories can be can have an impact in surfacing important concerns and issues and defining solutions and opening up space for discussions in terms of health education, community work, communication strategy, and policy advocacy. And a key aspect of the digital storytelling method is the value that it places on the process of creating stories. And so we view this process as equally important as the final media product. So there's something really powerful, and I'm sure the storytellers can speak to this, about bringing groups of people together to share experiences from their own lives that are thematically connected in some way. So there's power in terms of the relationships that form, the trust that is developed, and the greater sense of capacity and agency that people come away with for taking leadership and speaking out about the health issues that affect them and their families and their communities. And then finally, the stories that come out of our digital storytelling workshops are really useful in a range of public health contexts. So they're really ideal vignettes for encouraging individual behavior change, for promoting needed shifts in community norms away from unhealthy or stigmatizing views and towards more openness and acceptance. And then also, of course, for supporting policy advocacy to push for policy change at institutional or legislative levels. All right, so Rhea, I think you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Great. So with the Hepatitis B Foundation project that we're all focused on today in the webinar, with the Hepatitis B Foundation, we really took a wide view in terms of recruiting storytellers. So we developed some clear online materials that talked about the goals of the project, and then offered these materials to the Hep B Foundation's network of partners across the country who assisted with doing outreach and talking to potential participants. And then we also did an online application process to make sure that the stories would reflect the broadest possible range of relevant issues and that the storytellers would represent the broadest diversity in terms of people living with and affected by hepatitis B. So we then held 2 digital storytelling workshops. The workshop in Berkeley allowed the storytellers to go through the entire 3-day process of sharing stories and learning to produce them as short videos. And then due to time constraints, the session in Philadelphia was modified into a 2-day session. So people were guided all the way through image gathering and storyboarding, and then we did the actual editing at StoryCenter. And we ended up with an amazingly diverse group of storytellers, which you'll see later, hopefully, when you get a chance to watch all the stories, but people from as far distant places from Hawaii all the way to Florida, from up north, and a range of ages and ethnicities. And so for people who aren't familiar with the digital storytelling workshop process, I'm just going to quickly give a kind of an overview of what that looks like. So the first day really focuses on helping people get clear on what their story is through the sharing of examples of stories that have been created in other workshops, and then through a story circle, when people tell their stories verbally and offer feedback to each other. Then the second day focuses on supporting the workshop participants in getting all the pieces of their stories into the computer. So they write and audio record short scripts and collect or generate photos and video clips, either that they've brought or that we would go out and shoot with them. And then the final day focuses on video editing. We do simple hands-on tutorials and guide people through the steps they need to produce their stories. And we always end with a screening of the stories and a celebration of the accomplishments, just to give some closure to the experience. And then finally, we're continuing to work with the Hep B Foundation on follow-up consultation. So we developed the story discussion guide. We offered a webinar on its use to the storytellers, and then we're involved and will continue to be involved in various other activities to help get the stories out into the world. So I think that's it for those slides. I really thank everyone for your time. Please feel free to reach out after the webinar if you have additional questions about digital storytelling. And then I'm going to turn it back to Rhea and I know that you'll have an amazing chance to see some of the stories and talk to the storytellers. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate your time, and we will share your contact information with the materials that we send out later in case anybody has follow-up questions for you.
Great.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now before we get to the videos and speaking with our storytellers, I just want to give you guys a little more information about our distribution plan for the digital stories and some upcoming events that we have. So our Just Be digital stories were all released publicly on May 1st on YouTube and at www.hepb.org/justbe. That's the main page for our campaign. Each month, we feature a different video from the Story Bank on our website, blog, newsletters, and social media accounts. Hepatitis B Foundation is coordinating efforts to disseminate the digital stories to a wide audience and to promote the Just Be campaign through national and local media outreach, including with ethnic media outlets. Social media promotion is a key component of this campaign. As you can tell, the name of our campaign, Just Be, is a hashtag itself, the hashtag for the campaign. And by the way, we'd like to thank APCHO for sharing that hashtag with us, and we're brainstorming names for this campaign. I've also noted on the screen that we are doing a Twitter view next Tuesday, May 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, during which we'll be chatting with a few of our Just Be storytellers as another way to promote more dialogue and discussion around hepatitis B. So next Tuesday, you can follow our Twitter handle at Hep B Foundation to join that conversation. At the local level, we have outlined a plan for working with our existing community partners and stakeholders across the country to help distribute the digital stories in more community-based settings and targeted areas. We also are offering resources, as Amy alluded to, and as I'll show you, that we have available on our website. We have resources for individual storytellers who participated, as well as organizations like our Hep B United partners and other community-based organizations that we work with to help you guys find ways to tie the Just Be campaign into any local hepatitis B screening or education events that you have. In terms of advocacy, we are working to integrate the Just Be stories into our national policy and advocacy initiatives with the idea that we can and should really leverage the power of these personal stories from constituents whenever we're communicating with elected officials and government agencies. So in just a couple of weeks, the Hepatitis B Foundation is hosting a congressional briefing here in Washington, D.C., during which two of our storytellers will be joining us and screening their videos and talking a bit more about why finding a cure for hepatitis B is important to them, and talking about the need for increased investment towards the discovery of a Hep B cure. We're also hoping to invite a few storytellers to DC this summer to also participate in our annual Hep B United Summit and Hill Day. For storyteller engagement, also as Amy started to go over, we are committed to supporting our group of storytellers beyond just their participation in the workshop and the production of their digital stories. So we want to continue engaging them in hepatitis B education and advocacy events and working with them on an ongoing basis, depending on their schedule and their interests, just working with our group of storytellers to identify other speaking opportunities and helping them to develop the skills to continue being a champion for Hep B issues and to advocate for changes in their communities. And then also right now, so we launched this campaign in May, but we started working on the project last year. We will be doing a full evaluation of the different aspects of the project to help us prepare for a year 2 or phase 2 of the campaign. So we're just in the beginning of distributing the stories from this year's workshops, but looking ahead to later this year and next year, we definitely are starting to plan for an additional workshop and other opportunities to bring in video or to bring in stories, whether they're in this video format that you'll be seeing today or in other ways that we can collect these important stories to help bring awareness to issues related to hepatitis B. Now, just a couple more things here before we get into our Q&A and discussion with the storytellers. What you see on the screen right now, and I apologize if there's any lag in the slides. Right now you're seeing a screenshot of the campaign website. It's just the main place you can go to find all of the stories and to find resources that we have developed to help with people who are interested in sharing these stories. We have the discussion guide that Amy talked about. That was something that we partnered on to develop, and if you go to the website and you can view the PDF or download the Just Be discussion guide, and it actually contains a synopsis of each story, some key takeaway points, and some sample discussion questions that you can use if you're screening the videos at an event. It's also just a good resource to have if you're going to be sharing the videos just on social media. If your organization has an interest in doing that, there is an appendix in the discussion guide that has some sample social media posts. And we will also continue to add, if you are checking back on that main website, there's a sidebar there that has resources and other things, links to fact sheets and other online resources that will help in the dissemination of these stories. So these are just a few other examples that you're seeing here, some things that we've developed for the launch of the campaign. So there's a press release which you can find online, and whenever we send these slides out, you can just click directly here to see that press release, to see some of the blog posts that have been written so far, and that discussion guide. Okay, and now I have the 3 videos lined up of the 3 people who are joining us today, Kim, Rensley, and Jason. So I am going to apologize in advance if the video quality or the lag time is an issue here, but we tried to test this out a little earlier and it seemed to work okay. If anything, you should be able to hear the audio of the stories pretty clearly. So for this first video, this is Kim's story, and she chose the word courageous as her Just Be tagline. And you'll have an opportunity to hear from Kim and learn a little bit more about her. But for now, here is her video.
I was always Daddy's little girl. In this picture, he's holding me when I first came to America. He had been a soldier in the Vietnam War and had to escape to America in 1981. A year later, my mom, sister, and I escaped by boat to a refugee camp in Indonesia. He was able to find us and sponsor us to bring us to Minnesota, and worked for years to help others find safety like we did. He and I are so much alike, except he was always stoic and upright, and I was always throwing my arms around him, whether he liked it or not. Even though my siblings may disagree, I was his favorite. He knew he had hepatitis B for many years before he was diagnosed with liver cancer. It's pretty common in the Asian communities, but no one talks about it. He was the same way. He never told us he had it. Maybe because he thought people would gossip and treat us differently. They would be afraid to shake his hand, share our food, or even be in the same room with him. I can understand why he was afraid to say or do anything about it. Maybe if we had resources in our language, people could be educated and more of us would know better. And I might have been able to help my dad sooner. When the doctors told him he had 6 months to a year to live, he didn't let that stop him from doing what he loved. This picture was taken on our last trip to Hawaii, his favorite place. He said they had the sweetest tasting Logan here. He was in and out of the hospital a lot, being poked and prodded. But he never complained. He always just smiled. And sweet-talked the nurses into giving him apple juice. He knew he was dying, but he chose to live until the very end. Always with a gentle smile. Just be courageous.
Okay, I hope you guys are able to hear that one okay. I'm going to go right into the next story for now, but we will definitely have an opportunity to talk with Kim in more detail about that. So our next story is from Rensley. Her title is Just Be Strong.
My husband was so frustrated, he just stormed out the clinic. The doctor had just told us that there was nothing they could do for his hepatitis B there in the Marshall Islands. I looked up at the doctor. When he complimented me for being strong, I said, "If I'm not, how can we move on?" I stayed strong when we moved to Hawaii and Kenson had his liver transplant. He was so sick. I wasn't able to work for a year because I had to take care of him. Our children were in school, but they had to drop out so they could help support the family. We wondered how we would survive when we used up all our resources. We were about to be evicted from our apartment. We had nothing. We couldn't keep up with our needs. So I decided to find a job, even though Ken was still very sick from his liver transplant. Every day was the same. At 8 a.m., I went to work. At noon, I came home to care for him. At 1 p.m., I went back to work, and in the evening, more care. On top of all this, there were the insurance appeals. When I started my job, Ken lost his access to Medicaid because my income put us over the income limit by $2.13. We were living paycheck to paycheck. We're still paying hospital bills now, still barely making it. Every time I think of what we went through, I shed tears. But I also find that strength to keep moving on. I tell people, get tested for hepatitis B and make sure you see a doctor to keep your liver healthy if you are infected. You can prevent your family from going through the hardship my family went through. Just be strong.
Okay, that was Rensley's video. And we have just one more to show. Jason is our third storyteller on the webinar today. And Jason's story is called Just Be Aware.
I remember all the questions swimming around in my head. Why me? Why now? In 2011, I was living in New York City. One day from a routine medical examination, I discovered the devastating news. I have hepatitis B. At the time, my life was unbalanced due to misgivings with addiction, leaving me lost, spiritually bankrupt, confused, all the while living with AIDS. I relocated back to my native Kansas after the untimely passing of my mother, which catapulted my life into recovery. Nearby Kansas City, which is flooded with hepatologists who only specialize in Hep C. That's not what I have. The doctor that was treating me had very little experience with hepatitis B, HIV co-infection. She put me on a higher dose of medication, which led me to develop kidney disease. She told me there was nothing she could do for me. When I lived in New York City, I learned to be proactive. So I started signing up for every research study I could find, as far away as Oklahoma and Texas. I fell into a deep depression and attempted suicide because I thought there was no hope. My husband stood by my side. Without him, I doubt I would have made it through those tough times. Finally, I found a hepatologist 290 miles away in St. Louis. He was flabbergasted at the measures used to treat my Hep B. He let me know right there everything was going to be all right. New medicines are coming down the pipeline in a few years. He enrolled me into his cohort study to monitor what makes Hep B better or worse. He made me feel like I mattered. So today I educate high school students about hepatitis B as well as HIV. Let me tell you something, Hep B. I have you. You don't have me. Just be aware.
Okay, that was our last video. I've seen these videos several times now in the course of our post-production editing, but every time it's really powerful to hear. And we can't say thank you enough to the storytellers for being open to sharing these stories, even just coming to the workshop without really knowing what the process would be like, and just knowing that they wanted to share their stories in order to hopefully inspire other people to do the same and to make a difference as we advocate for improved services and care for people living with and affected by Hep B. So now that you've seen the 3 videos, I'm going to invite Kim, Rensley, and Jason to join us by video now so that we can do the conversation, the Q&A conversation live by video. All right, so you can see Kim. Jason looks like he's floating. Great, and there is Rensley. So, thank you guys again for joining. Oh, I think Jason, yours says please start. Oh, there you go. Great, you guys are great. So I want to say thanks again to these 3 for taking the time to join us on this webinar. I have a few questions for each of them just to help us get to know them a little bit more. But first I'll let's go in order maybe and have everybody just say your name and where you're from, and maybe tell us why you decided to participate in the workshop, or what motivated you to share your story more publicly? Kim?
Hi everyone, my name is Kim Vu, and I am a biology professor at St. Catherine's University. I chose to participate in this program because my father had passed away from hepatitis B. And what motivates me is that I don't want any other families to go through what we've gone through because of this disease.
Thank you, Kim. Jason, would you like to go?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jason Crum, and I'm from Leavenworth, Kansas. I live in Kansas City, Missouri now. I chose to be part of this webinar and the stories because I believe that I need to do my part in society and educate people with my story about the hepatitis B and trying to erase the stigmas. It's something that I'm committed in doing, and I will continue to do as long as I can.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And Rensley? Oh, 1 second. I think you're on mute. I can see you.
Yep. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Yes. Good morning from Hawaii. My name is Rensley Alik. My husband is from the Marshall Islands. We moved from the Marshall Islands in 2011 to Hawaii because of his transplant. And the reason why I want to join this webcam or this project because I want to increase awareness on hepatitis B, that there is something we can do to make it better.
Great, thank you. So I have an individual question now for Jason. You mentioned a little bit of this at the end of your video, but I'd like to hear a more specific example of how you approach the education that you do with youth around HIV and hepatitis B. And in what ways do you think the Just B stories would be useful in that as part of the education and outreach that you do?
How I think the stories might be useful is the storytellers were quite well diverse as far as background and cultures is concerned. And just going to the students and telling them about my story is just not enough. It's not strong enough. So I'm hoping to the next time I go in to speak to the students, which will be the start of the new school season, I'm going to show them all the videos, because I think by a lot of people identify by culture and by experience. And so I'm hoping that these videos will be able to connect with them, and they'll be able to speak about, you know, hepatitis B more openly once they first know what it is, because the students don't know what it is. They have no clue because they're so hidden. The truth is hidden from them by our politicians who don't encourage the teachers to teach about hepatitis B and C and HIV and all those things that are potentially harmless. Anything we don't know about is harmful. So I hope that these videos will be able to enlighten them and encourage them to go on further in getting more information about hepatitis B.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, that's a great point, and something that we really wanted to find a diverse set of storytellers who we could bring them to different communities, and everybody could relate and see themselves potentially being affected by hepatitis B. So I'm glad that you found that use. So I'm going to ask a question now to Rensley. So what, coming from your experience as a caregiver and caring for your family and experiencing what your husband went through, what kind of specific content do you tailor for Pacific Islander women living in Hawaii when you and Kenson do your hepatitis B focused education and outreach? Do you tailor the content? Do you find that there are different ways that you're best able to speak to those communities?
Can you say the last part, Ria? Can you repeat the last part?
Yes, sorry. So is there specific content that you tailor when you go out into your communities and do their education and outreach around hepatitis B? Is specific to maybe culture or any cultural stigmas or things like that you have to be sensitive of?
Yes, first it was very difficult for us because, Ken cannot talk to women about hepatitis B because of the content. It's against our culture. So what we do, we usually separate like women and men from each other. But now it's more like we're comfortable ourselves. We're comfortable talking about hepatitis B to both men and women. So we let them know that if there is something that we're going to present that will be against the culture, it is something that we want them to take it positively because it will help us or help them move forward to understand hepatitis B.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I have a couple of questions for Kim. In your story, you talk about the misconceptions held by members of Vietnamese communities around hepatitis B. How do you think those beliefs would best be challenged? How would you approach that?
Right. A few common misconceptions in the Vietnamese community is that hepatitis is genetic. And because of that, people think that they can't prevent it nor cure it. And then the second one that I see clearly in my family is that my parents, they used to, when they found out that my dad had hepatitis, they would boil the bowls, utensils that my dad would use because they thought that it was transmitted by sharing meals or bowls and utensils like that. These misconceptions are most commonly held or strongly held by the elder generation, such as my parents. So with that, if we're targeting this population, one method would be to have people that they trust and respect talk about it, such as doctors, community leaders, to educate the community about hepatitis B and hopefully get rid of all these misconceptions.
Absolutely. And I know that with many Vietnamese communities living in the U.S. are facing different economic, cultural, and linguistic barriers to adequate health care. So related to that, what you were just talking about, what role, if any, did those factors play in your father or maybe other members of the Vietnamese community? What role did those factors play in him delaying seeking services and health care?
Yeah. Well, I asked my dad why he kept quiet for so long, and he never really gave us an answer. But I believe that there are a few reasons. One being that culturally, he's the man of the family, so it's his responsibility to take care of us. And if he were to be diagnosed with a disease, then what would happen then? Where would our family be? So culture is definitely a big factor. In economics, I know that my father, he was very thrifty and tried to minimize any expenses for him and instead use that on us. So I think there was a fear that if he was diagnosed, how would he, one, work to provide for us, and two, where would the money come from to treat or cure the disease?
You can. Here's another question for Rensley. When you attended the workshop in Berkeley, and I think you mentioned this in your video, but you shared that your kids had to drop out of school to help support your family during Kenson's struggle with liver failure and his transplant. In what other ways do you think that their lives changed as a result of the family going through this experience?
Yes, because I was away from home most of the time. My son was only 15, 16. He started to, be by himself and associate with other kids. He started to, you know, drink alcohols and using drugs. He was at verge to be expelled from school. It's more like something that he was blaming us, like we do something wrong that he is in that situation. So we had to find a time to really sit down with him and talk to him that we can go through together with together with the struggle that we went through. So that's one of the things that really impacted him, especially my son. And my daughter had to struggle with her kid, our first grandson, and by herself, and also a part-time job so that she can be able to support the family.
Wow. Do you think that with the education and outreach that you do now, I think that they're involved with that sometimes, or they help you volunteer, at least they're more knowledgeable?
Yes, the first part. I mean, when we started, they were like, "No, we don't want to." But now they're very involved or participated in all the sessions that we do with the communities. They help out with passing out papers or helping us with setting up the systems and stuff when we go out to the communities. And I'm very impressed with that.
That's great. Okay, I have another question for Jason. In your video, you had talked about enrolling in medical research studies and how your doctor connected you to some of that. Can you offer any more details on the status of your participation in any studies, and maybe share why being involved or doing that can benefit those living with hepatitis B?
Well, currently I'm enrolled in the Hepatitis B network cohort research study, which involves no medication from the study. However, I am on a medication called Genvoya, which is not recommended usage for chronic hepatitis B. However, it helps the HIV. I have gotten some good results from the Genvoya, but not as good as we would like them to be. This study helps the researchers know what makes Hep B worse and which makes Hep B better. So people that who test positive, after me, and once I've gone through the process, hopefully they can find different ways to treat everybody's Hep B, and that's what this study is all about. So if I'm still alive without a cure 20 years from now, well, I'll still be in the study. So the study won't end until they found a cure or I expire. So that's my status in the study.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you find that, have you had conversations with other people who are living with Hep B, and do you find yourself recommending people to look into the possibility of also joining studies like that? Do you feel that it benefits?
I'm going to be, right now they're organizing a focus group that I can do here in Kansas City, and I'm hoping to come across other people who have Hep B, to talk more about their struggles. If they're not getting treated, of course I'm going to recommend them to get treated. If they're like me, they have a wild strain that can't be treated, then of course I'm going to recommend them to the study, because you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping someone else who lives with the virus. Who's to say maybe they may be able to find medication that's less with side effects than what they have now. Perhaps maybe they just might come across a strain that they can find a cure to. Who knows? So I think the more people that they have in this study, the better the outcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to start reading through now some of the other questions that have been submitted through from our audience through the chat box. So let's see, this one could be for all three of you. Maybe we'll start with Kim. Did you have any reservations before telling your story, and how did you overcome them?
There's a strong stigmatism in the Vietnamese community about families with hepatitis, and I think that's partially why my dad kept quiet for so long. I just don't care. I just want to help as many families as I can, because we do know that hepatitis is extremely prevalent in the Asian community. So we've just been, my sister and I have been really advocating, going to all different types of health fairs, going to our communities and saying, this is a silent killer. It's very dangerous. You don't want to go through what we've gone through, and hope that it will make a difference.
Kim, we're so glad you were able to participate. I know you are really passionate about this, and we've already heard from you and your sister about some things you've been doing locally before your video is even finished. I know you've been working really hard to do education and outreach, so thank you for that. Jason or Rensley, do you have any thoughts on that?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question was, did you have any reservations before telling your story, before coming to the workshop, or I think maybe you had shared your story before then, I'm not sure, but if you hadn't, was there anything that you were nervous about, or any reason that you felt?
Absolutely not. I mean, with my addiction alone, I went to hell and back. So I have nothing to keep quiet about. I mean, I have to talk about it. By talking to other people about it, sharing my experience, not only helps them, but it helps me in a way too. You kind of, self-healing. But no, absolutely not. I don't have no regrets or anything. If I was to do it again, I would do it again. Because I know if once these videos are dispersed, globally, it's going to help a lot of people, and that's what it's about. I went to a conference last year, and I told myself I'm a volunteer to humanity, because that's what it's about. It's about helping our fellow man.
That is great, and oh, go ahead.
I don't regret doing the videos or anything. I'm just not gonna keep my mouth shut. I went through too much.
I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that you're so passionate about spreading awareness to more people and not being afraid to talk about your past experiences, because you know that it will benefit others and help them learn more about what they can do. I'm just reading through a few more questions. Rensley, have you shared your story with other family and friends, and what was some of the reaction or response that you've seen to sharing the video or sharing your story in general?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, so I guess since the workshop and since you've produced this video, have you shared it with other family or friends and what was their reaction?
Yeah, I just share with my immediate family. I haven't shared with my church. I'm planning to do it with my church members, and their reaction is very positive. They some of the things that they never know that we went through. They thought that we were okay. So it's a good thing to share with everyone that we have to be strong together.
Yeah. Okay, we have one general question. I can answer this one. It was asking if would we be able to link to the webpage of the campaign and or embed the videos on our webpage? So I'm assuming this is, you know, a partner organization who's interested in linking to the videos, and so we do have. You can find the YouTube links to all of the videos from hepb.org/justb. So all of the videos are hosted on YouTube. And in that sense, I think you can go there and find the embed code for each video and share them and put them on your website. But I can look more into that and maybe send information or instructions on how to do that. But we definitely welcome any sharing and promotion of the videos that you guys can do as wherever it's relevant in any of your communications. And if you follow us on our Twitter, Facebook, or anything, or subscribe to our newsletters, we do have a plan for the next just 15 months or however long, because we have 15 storytellers, and we wanted to feature each person during a different month. And so you'll find that we're going to be putting out different teasers and things like that on social media that will make it easier to share the videos. So you're welcome to help us in any way you'd like to distribute them more widely. Another question we have, I think this is more about, so the question is, did you learn anything about yourself or others through the storytelling workshop? I know that's a pretty general question, but maybe you can talk a little bit about the experience that you guys had at the workshop, if maybe like one quick thing that you learned from that. Kim?
Can I have some more time to think about it?
Yes, yeah. And we'll make it, I just realized it's 3:59, but so it can be one thing, maybe your favorite thing, or one thing that you learned about yourself from the 3-day storytelling workshop. So if anybody has anything, go ahead.
I've learned, I've learned patience, patience with others, and with myself, really. When we did the videos, I did not realize that it was going to take so much out of you to dig down deep and talk about the issues that are so raw and so real, and actually mentally prepare yourself to tell it and share it with the world. And I listened to the other videos, and there was a lot of pain in that room that day, and but we pulled together and we did it. It was a remarkable experience, one I'll never forget, never.
I agree with that. It was really great to see the storytellers kind of come together and support each other, and to hear that we're not alone, and everybody has a story to share. That was great.
Mm-hmm. I was in the same group as. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, I wanted to say I just want to give you and Rensley a chance to answer if you'd like. We're almost out of time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was in the same workshop as Jason and Rensley, and they can vouch. I essentially cried from the beginning to the end of the workshop. I probably used 3 tissue boxes. But it was very painful. But it helped me to realize how upset I am that I feel robbed of time with my father. So particularly with the disease, that there is a possibility of a cure out there. We just need to pull enough resources to find that cure. So that's why I'm advocating.
Thank you, Kim. I know it was a really emotional time, and we really appreciate that you were courageous and so passionate about sharing that story. Okay, and Bensley, do you have anything to add before we go?
Incredible experience. My first time to meet other people, same as my husband, that he went through hepatitis B, clients and family members. It's more like I'm not alone. I have other people out there who are working toward a better for all our FB patients or community.
Yes. Yes. Well, I really appreciate all of you, your positive attitude towards this, even though it's hard and it's challenging to talk about these issues and to put that out there so publicly in the form of this video campaign. But we, again, really appreciate it. So I know we're over time here. I want to thank the three of you again so much, and thank the audience for participating in the webinar today. And thank you to Amy for presenting her part of the webinar earlier. So the contact information and our URL for the different websites are up, and our social media accounts are also linked here in this presentation, which we'll email out to you guys. Please don't hesitate to contact us directly with any additional questions, comments, or feedback that we didn't get to address today. And remember to check out hepb.org/justb for the full collection of stories. And again, thank you all for participating today. Apologize for the technical difficulties and the way my screen looks right now, but I appreciate your time, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, bye. Thank you too.
Bye, Rensley. Bye, Kim.
Bye, Jason. Bye, Kim.
Bye.
Thank you, Ria.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.